cultural, especially into Tanzania, bring them up to the border so that Tanzanians can pick from the border and take into the interior. And they say that if you want to buy maize, for example, from Tanzania, wait for the maize at the border, let the Tanzanians bring it to the border so that you can buy it from there.
While on the contrary, Uganda is open. While on the
contrary, we are too open and we are therefore collapsing our traders. We are unable to compete in the trade scene across the region. The people of Busia, therefore, are demanding a government intervention. Government intervention in the sense that they need protection. And worse still, this intrusion of the Kenyans came at a time when traders in Busia had acquired loans, had mortgaged their buildings to get resources and invest into business.
I get a sense that these lamentations arise from government's strict stance against magendo, the magendo culture that was typical of Busia.
There has never been a magendo about cereals, for example.
But the culture has always been magendo.
And by the way, people of Busia are moving away from magendo into formal trade. You could call it petty trade, but they have moved away from smuggling. They pay tax. Good enough is that many of the products, agricultural products, that are traded across the border do not attract tax. So what we want in Busia is protection from unfair competition from our biggest neighbor, and that is Kenya. Unfair in such a sense that there are extreme non-tariff barriers on the Kenyan side. Ugandan traders who own trucks are unable to operate freely in Kenya. While in Uganda, if you go to Kisenyi here, you will find Kenyan trucks doing petty trade across Uganda, transporting goods from Gulu to Lira, from Lira to Soroti, from Soroti to Mbale, while we have our own truckers here. The challenge is that Kenyan traders in their country are able to access cheaper and long-term credit to buy trucks. Our truckers here...
someone would say that you're exaggerating the crisis at the borders.
You have to be in Busia to understand the situation in which people are. People in Busia, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4 houses, the fourth one is bank property. Banks are attaching properties in Busia because business has collapsed and therefore people are unable to meet their loan obligations. You have to look at the situation, domestic situations. Parents have abandoned families. Mothers that used to, operate restaurants. Those that used to feed 50 people are now feeding 10. The nightlife in Busia has collapsed. Areas that used to operate 24 hours are now operating up to 8 p.m. and they have closed. Why? Because trade has collapsed, and that has been brought about.
But for a while, Busia has had representation. Busia has been one of the focuses for the revenue collection. How come these matters are glossed over?
Yes, we've had the representation, but you may want to believe that each representation has its role. We have had the ongoing representation, and they have played their role. We believe that now is the time to engage another gear to protect the economic interests of our people. You've mentioned the issue of the border. Previously, there used to be a lot of customs clearing agents in Busia. Ever since the services were shifted from Busia and taken directly to Nakawa, the clearing and forwarding industry in Busia has collapsed. There is no benefit whatsoever we get from our strategic location at the border based on clearing and forwarding of goods and services, and there is no strategic advantage we are now getting in the exchange of goods and services by way of cross-border trade.
You are depicting Busia as now a ghost city. Once a glorious place, now a ghost place of its own.
And you are right, Busia was very glorious. Busia people had resources, and that permeated into the social sector, the sports sector. Busia was a sports powerhouse. We had boxers, we had football clubs. Life was going on. Parents were educating their children in some of the most expensive schools in this country. Today, it's very hard to find a child from Busia studying in the top schools in this country because the economy has collapsed. Parents are unable to afford high school fees.
Yeah, but Busia traditionally thrived on informality.
We have moved, like I said.
Informality.
And that informality actually stopped in the early 2000s when there was a vicious crackdown on smuggling. There were killings nearly on a daily basis of smugglers. And therefore, people moved from that sector of trade and now moved into the formal sector. What we are saying is that we do not want to engage in smuggling. What we demand government is protection from unfair business practices by our neighbors, the Kenyans. They have created, one is that they have...
But is it that gross? Is it as gross as you tend to...
You have to go to Busia to understand. Areas that used to have a lot of cereals, maize, beans, you know, soya bean, are now becoming like football fields.
You can't blame the Kenyans because there's a free trade arrangement.
We blame them because, to the contrary, we are not allowed to operate as freely as they do in Kenya. We have people that took maize to the Kenyan National Produce and Cereal Board. They packed their trucks for over 10 days. They had to bring the maize back to Busia for the Kenyans to come and buy and source from Busia. You see? So the competition is okay. What we are decrying is unfair competition, non-tariff barriers. People going into Kenya are harassed. Truckers driving into Kenya are harassed along the road.
At what level have you raised your pleas? Or you were just simply waiting for politics, the season?
The Busia Produce Traders Association have raised these issues. What we are coming in to do is to raise the platform on which these issues are being raised. And there is no better platform than in this election platform. Because that is when government focuses on policies that benefit the people or that they think should benefit the people. So our focus in this election in Busia municipality is based on a number of things, actually about 4 of them. The first one is to address the unfair business practices by the Kenyans. The second one is to address the collapsing education sector of Busia municipality. The third one is to address the question of the health sector. The health sector has collapsed. There are no health, the ratio of health workers to the population is very, very, disturbing. But fourthly, and perhaps that could lift our social services, is the question of the gold mine. Busia right now has the largest gold mine in Uganda. The deposits there are said to be worth over, $10 trillion. So what we want we want, first of all, to benefit as royalties, but also the law, the Mines and Minerals Act, says that miners, people engaged in mining, need to have community development agreements with the people that live in the areas in which the mines are.
Would you look at...
So none of those has been done. We do not know, we have no idea about royalties, we have no idea about the community development agreements. So we want to use this election to raise our voice in regard to those issues.
Have you taken enough time to analyze the situation at different other borders, or your plight is just in isolation?
It's not in isolation. You go to Malaba border town, it's collapsing. The business people in that area, the same story is happening in Busia. People are fleeing the town. The two towns are now becoming ghost towns, you know. So you say that indeed all these are political issues, because it's the politicians that make the laws, that make the policies. It's not a social issue. It is majorly political. It is the politics that drives the economy. It's the politics that drive the social sector. And we want to use this political season to raise our demands on these issues.
Under whose watch has the situation deteriorated to this extent?
We would not want to blame, to put blame here or there. What we want is to resolve the situation as it stands now, the way the Tanzanians resolved it.
Yeah, but you must make a good analysis, a good analysis of the problem, yes.
I think that there has not been a clear focus.
Okay, let's go from the diagnosis.
Yes.
Initially, how were things and how are things today?
Initially, all this produce, watermelon, beans, maize, and the likes, were being transported by Ugandan traders into Busia. And the Kenyans were buying from Busia. So that interaction left Busia at an economic advantage, because the hotel owners made money from the people who were bringing the goods and those who are coming to buy the goods. The women who cook in the markets made money, because the people who came to trade fed in the markets. The border people made money, because they carried people here and there, you know, frequently, and they also made money. People who ran mobile money stalls made money, because those traders engaged in that activity, transferring money on, mobile money and all that. So there was a huge catchment of beneficiaries in that trade. And once we opened our borders so much, so that the Kenyans are now going deep as far as Kasese, as far as Gulu, as far as Chivoga, they have basically removed Ugandans from out of the business equation. And they are doing that with their trucks.
Aren't you at the risk of sounding like a saboteur of investment?
We are living at a time when the United States, the most powerful